smile, but good.
Yeah, very cool. I'll then take this opportunity indeed to explain a bit more about the River Collective also. It's also a good opportunity at the moment because we're now, we just put the information online for online student for PIFcamp. So we decided to this year go online. Yeah, so the River Collective is a group of people actually that are just passionate about rivers and that mostly decided to go in a certain direction with their career to protect rivers, let's say. So imagine biology students, but also people that do art and like, but we seek for that common value of free flowing rivers in a sense, and aim to connect them together to have a collaboration that can really stand for free flowing rivers. Because we see that there's a huge gap kind of between river conservation and the academic world, and that especially academic people are not allowed even to have values really too much, like they have to be objective, sorry, they cannot be subjective, the difference. So kind of to establish a group a bit that really can go from this value on and really can have this as a core thing, to kind of motivate it and also to speak up within the world of academics. And we believe that you can really do that through having more contact also with the local river defenders, so that people are really stand up for their rivers. So to kind of mingle that a bit. So for instance, we're also doing citizen science projects where we want to get them going a bit more, not with the idea only to have more capabilities in data collection, but also to really have scientists learning from the people locally, because there's just a lot of knowledge in the people themselves. So to see this broader spectrum of academia, so to say. So science is not only gathering data and having your facts ready, but it's in a global context with a certain idea, and you can definitely pick your topic based on your values and still be objective about what you research, but do it with a certain direction, so to say. So kind of that, I would say, ideology is a bit, for me at least, the background of it. And I think like within the team, people share that quite a bit, and we see that more people share it, and that's the kind of people we try to get together during a camp to explain that context a bit more, but also definitely to discuss it and to see where there's overlap and to see how we can, from that value out, really change things. So yeah, we hope to do a camp in Montenegro, and Semra here also in the chat, she's from Montenegro. And we decided together to go to the Lim Valley and the Tara Valley, so two different valleys in Montenegro, of which the Lim Valley is really threatened with a lot of hydropower developments. But also at the same time, there's a lot of like plastic pollution. Like the river is just, if there would be more value behind the river, there's a lot to potentially improve. So it's a cool place to actually put this river value central, I would say. And we had a group of, I think, 80 people or something that applied for the school and wanted to come in, people from Montenegro, people from the rest of the Balkans, but also from the rest of the world, actually, because this similar problem that's happening there is happening worldwide, because there's worldwide just still a like kind of hydropower boom going on. So we hope to kind of put rivers a bit more central in political discussions also through science. So it's like it started with only like protecting rivers, but it becomes a bit wider than that because everything is coming together, right? So when Corona happened, like everybody had to stay inside, we didn't know what was going to happen, and we had a chat with the team. And I think it was just a cool moment that we again like could connect a bit, and then we decided to start doing those online science chats, because that's also a way to keep inspiring people connecting a little bit. And I think it's really at least gotten me through this period a little bit, because it was just all the time new cool people that told their stories, and the team get really motivated. So we've continued, and now it's starting to be summer and everybody's being more and more able to go outside a bit, which is actually cool because that's what the people do and that's what we want to do also. So not too fussed about it. But very soon we'll do the Students for PIFcamp online, and that's the moment to have some open lectures, but also definitely a lot of workshops and reasons go outside. Not knowing. And we definitely aim to also, since everybody's now home, close to their home rivers, we want it to be a moment that you can kind of connect with your own home river and friends and family around, to take them with trip, and to organize a local little movie night or something, or to organize a local bio blitz, which is a moment that everybody can go outside and do a biodiversity assessment. And that's kind of the setting we hope to create now. So it will be officially online, but it's kind of focused on your home rivers. And there will be one day that students can organize their own projects, which will then be aimed at Lim Valley again. So next year in May, we still hope to go to Lim Valley and to have some pilot projects going on the river, and together with Semra, see if we can build up some projects and that could continue in the next year. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do, right? Maybe somebody has something to add, someone of my team or somebody else that comes in.
I think we could add the coming BioBlitz, right? We have, besides the students for PIFcamp, the online students for PIFcamp, we're gonna conduct a worldwide river BioBlitz on the 20th of September, supported by National Geographic and iNaturalist. And it's basically, it's gonna be like a group of coordinators all around the world in different rivers, in their local rivers, with groups around 5 to 15 people, measuring and gathering data about the local wildlife, and also in that sense getting to understand the local biodiversity in their own home rivers. So it's called the Home River BioBlitz. And also, if any of you people there in the PIFcamp are interested on leading some of these BioBlitzes in Slovenia maybe, or in other parts of Europe, you are welcome. We are gonna start promoting this in the coming days. So that's an additional activity we have. And I think it will be nice, because normally we just present like the speakers, but I think because we are a small group, maybe you could tell us a bit more about this PIFcamp and present yourselves to the people that are here, and also to the record, like who you are and what are you interested in, and how you came to this, and then we just go on with the discussion.
I have one more question to what Vera said. So you mentioned that you want to connect through these camps the students and the river defenders. So who do you call river defenders? Like activists that are working on river defense already? And what kind of methods do they use?
Do the activists use, or what kind of methods do we use to connect to them?
So I would like to know who's the river defender, like what kind of people do you call river defenders?
Yeah.
And methods do they use?
Yeah, so we started this in collaboration with Balkan River Defense, so that's kind of literal river defenders in a way, right? And in like, you see that around the Balkans, there's a lot of places where there's the threat of a hydropower plant. And a river defender, I would say, is the person that dares to stand up for their river, be it in politics, be it on the river, be it with a demonstration. So it's definitely towards the activist side. But it's an interesting question. We have a student this year who did the research on the Sava, actually, mostly interviewing river defenders, and that's still a wide range of people. So what's their methods? It goes super broad, right? Some are river defender by really engaging local communities. Some are just the local communities and do that by doing something on their school, but it's definitely also the people that, as soon as there are bulldozers driving into their valley, that stand on the road and that make sure that the bulldozer just doesn't get to their home river. Maybe Semra, are you there?
Yes, sorry.
Did you hear the question?
Not really.
Who is it? Like, maybe a cool question for, like, Semra is the one that definitely knows the people in Montenegro and is the one closest to those river defenders in Montenegro. Can you tell us a bit about them and how you connected to them?
Just sorry, just a second. Yeah.
Are we gonna see you even?
So yeah, Montenegro is a really small country, and if you're interested in anything, it's easy to find people who are doing anything about it. For me, I got everything I found out that I'm following is mostly over social media, and I just got in touch with those people whenever I wanted any kind of information, or if I wanted to join any kind of activity and or protest or etc. So yeah, that's how it works mostly.
Pretty much I know Semra through 2 years ago. I was in Montenegro myself during the Balkan Rivers tour, which is more an activist tour, so to say. And Semra, no, it was even before. I went to Montenegro, I went around the Balkans, and I did some presentations. I said, like, oh, I think it's cool to have the scientists and the river defenders together, but how should we do this kind of thing? And Semra was there during a meeting at a hostel, I think, and she was like, oh, I can maybe help with some administration or whatever. And she then got really involved and came to last year's camp. And yeah, it's also quite a bit through the kayaking community in a sense. I think on the Tara there are some real active river defenders already. And then indeed what Semra says, it's such a small world.
Yeah, and people here are mostly, scared that there will be put the mark of on their back if they just say something against, for example, small hydropower plants, etc. At least that was the case 2 years ago, but now I think things are slowly changing. And at the moment it's mess because of the COVID and elections and all the corruption here. But yeah, I think things are slowly changing because people can't just handle anymore what's going on. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, and the last note maybe to this is that, like, we definitely connect to river defenders, so to say, but that sounds like only people that are fully against anything else, kind of. But we're also really on the side of really trying to just like have that river standing central. So it's not only river defenders, but it's river celebrators even, like
river
that.
Lovers.
River lovers. Yeah. But it's like, honestly, there's a lot going on and it sounds cooler than this, but we're also not the heroes, and it's super important to connect to the people that actually care about their rivers, whether it's as a river defender or just as a fisherman or as a kayaker or as a
locals.
Yeah. I think in that sense, it's basically collaborative networks. And I think you also in the PIFcamp have a lot to say about that, right? Like in the end, you're also trying to make science more a collaborative space more than this competition ground that it's nowadays. Or am I wrong? Like in that sense, like now sending the questions to you, like what will be the purpose of the PIFcamp? Like why do you gather there to do science, and which kind of science, and under which context, whether you're during this week where you meet all?
So there is like few levels, and I would like first.
There's some delay, but Jens, I understand you want us to get into the presentation mode.
And we will slowly start with this, I promise. I have to say that I'm really, really glad to hear what Vera also said before, that like last year when I started to work more with rivers, because I worked with years with ocean, seas, and more like water bodies in bigger quantities. And then rivers was last year one of the main commissions inside of my artwork. And for me, it was really important not to just come to the river and do the measurements, in the sense like, like as Westerners like to do the medicine, but to also have connection with the river in the sense of like understanding what means ecological kind of justice, you know, how we can understand, you know, what means personalhood of the river, what means when you go just like meditate to the river, and how to connect with the river in the sense it's not only the water, but it's also the riverbed, is the all the kind of ecological niche which is coming with that, you know. So I'm really happy that, you know, you also work with hint of this kind of context inside of river collective. Last year when I was doing this Riologia, it was like one bigger event. It was like one day citizen science workshop with 600 people in Madrid. One of the main questions for me was also how to do something with so many people that we don't damage the river at the same moment, because, you know, when you have like such a, you know, bigger mass of people coming, you can sometimes do it wrongly. So we have been really developing very interesting methodology, how to deal with that and how to also enter into the thing. The PIFcamp, which me and Julian we are now, is event which happens every year here in Slovenia. I'm here now the second time. Was first time when they organized it 6 years ago. Julian is, I think, every year almost now.
No, I was last year.
Oh, okay. It's about second time at PIFcamp. We can tell you a bit different experience of it, because this year, because of COVID, and we shall not, you know, social distancing and stuff, which, you know, when you are together in these kind of places, it's really hard to maintain. But we all, try to be really careful, you know, like washing hands, being respectful with each other borders. It's important.
Yeah, but come on.
So we are trying to work on that, of course, but at the other hand, this year that's why it's less people here. But I think that this is also good, because through this we can even better to reconnect with each other and speak more with each other, and you can really get to know different activities. Like I'm really thrilled that Julian is also here because of, you know, you work so much with soil, and this is some terra material which I'm not dealing so much otherwise.
I think that's the point, that it's a diversity of people, and not only from their backgrounds, also what they work on and what they know about in theory, and also practical knowledge. I mean, I can tell you just the example of my day today, which would have been a very much without all these friendly people to help me out. But yeah, did you want to add something? So in my case, I have no idea about electronics and Raspberry Pis and computers and coding and all this stuff, but I need it as tools. I want to use these tools, and I want to use open source tools. And here we have a lot of people who actually solder their own synthesizers and scientific equipment and all kinds of stuff, and code them. And for example, I'm repurposing old scanners for soil time lapse. I can maybe show you something later. So basically, you take a scanner and connect it with a Raspberry Pi, and then it makes an image, for example, every minute or every 10 minutes or whatever, for a long period of times. And then you can make a video out of it. And one thing that I'm exploring right now is root growth. How the roots of the plant grow in different kind of soil and also under different conditions. And
do you have some images of that we could see?
Yeah,
sounds really amazing.
I think if we just open some internet.
Yeah. You have to open another site.
No, I can go to the HUMUS sapiens. You can see this?
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe a few words about the whole project within that I'm working. There are quite a few names. For example, Hecteria which is a collective of scientists, artists, educators, whatever, all sorts of people that work since 10 years already in this, let's call it biohacking bubble. And one of the projects that I'm involved in is HUMUS sapiens, that I co-founded with some people from the network. And I think we have, so if you go to the Hecteria wiki, you can find all sorts of documentation, and it will lead you from one thing to the next. It's sometimes a bit chaotic, like wikis should be. So
why open soil research? Why is it open? What does that mean when you say open soil research?
It's open for all kind of people. So not only, like, research is usually a very closed business with from scientist to scientist, and you can only be part of this allied cast if you studied for so and so many years and you have your degrees and your publications and your tralala. And we don't really care about this kind of stuff. We also don't exclude people with PhDs, but we don't we're not scared to work with people who don't have any scientific education. And actually, for me, this was the main reason why I got involved into this kind of work.
Is that also like the concept of biohacking, like biohacking bringing science like to a more open space?
Yeah, in this case, biology. So everybody knows hacking in a computer and hardware sense. And for example, the scanner, you hack the scanner, right? You use it not for scanning documents or pictures, but for something totally different. So one other approach is, for example, also burying them just in the ground in your field, and leave them in there for half a year and observe humus formation on site. So this is definitely not what you should do with a scanner, burying it in your field. So this is a hack. But that's basically what hacking is all about. So using things in a way, in a creative way, not necessarily as they're supposed to be used. And for me, the term biohacking is then using this approach, this idea of hacking on anything that is living. So plants, bacteria, that's the main thing for me, but could also be something totally different. Like you could also work with animals or with your own body. So yeah, this is the idea of hacking. And yeah, for me, so I was in academia, trained as a molecular biologist for many years, and for me it just got very boring after a while. And over the years, you kind of repeat the same processes over and over again. It's interesting for a while, but I think it's much more inspiring to work, for example, with artists who have totally different approaches, and yeah, and we can learn a lot from each other by doing that.
So you also have been working in arts and science project, like collaborating with artists to show something scientifically, or like is it HUMUS sapiens also a collaboration with artists, or like do you have other example of projects?
Yes. It's not about science communication.
Exactly. I think it's a good idea to now get clarified about these terms a bit, because often it's mixed up, like citizen science, then this DIY
source,
DIY biology was for a long time called like DIY bio, was a big thing. Biohacking as well is sometimes understood in different ways. And one thing that I value a lot is actually a good form of science communication, which where citizen science is a part of, I would say, mainly. So the way it is used, at least. So it's for me, the way in the last few years that I learned about citizen science projects is that it's usually a big institution that then integrates other people not from who are not working professionally with these topics to collect data or to do little research projects, and then they collect it and they kind of curate it and evaluate them. And that's interesting and it's nice because you really people with that, and you get this self-exploring kind of approach to science. Yeah, but with Homo sapiens, we did more, actually, not so much citizen science. We more did traditional science communication through workshops. That's one pillar of Homo sapiens, let's say, like really with school children, or yeah, we can go maybe back. Like there are some pictures. Like this would be this would be a workshop with children learning to do microscopy on soil samples and this kind of stuff. Or also in cities. I did a bit of workshops in different cities to get people who live and work in cities more into contact with soil. And always you have to really search for it. In Paris, for example, it was quite hard to find a little park in the middle of the center where to dig a hole, because everything is sealed.
Interesting what you're saying, because I've heard there is this concept of soil fossilization in cities.
Soil, talking about what?
Soil fossilization in cities.
Soil fossilization.
Fossilization
In cities, right? Because of like this
yes.
cover.
Yeah, soil sealing is actually a big topic. Yes, and I always try to translate these numbers. Also in Germany, for example, it's 61 hectares per day that is transformed, and it's always a bit hard to imagine these numbers. And then if I'm in a city, I transform it to the area of a park, for example. Everybody knows this park, and then I ask them, how long do you think it takes to erase this park on an average? And it's usually just minutes. Sometimes if it's a bigger park, it's hours, and that makes people think more about soil and their environment. But that was the science communication part. What's happening here at PIFcamp, and also in the retreats that we do with Homo sapiens, which is kind of a similar idea behind it, is to bring people to one space, like out of their normal environment, and bring them together, give them a lot of tools and freedom. For example, we get 3 meals per day here, really wonderful, which liberates us already from this very basic task of making food. And we can concentrate on exchanging and working together. And this is, for me, the inspiring part, that a lot of different people with their own projects and own ideas come and collaborate. And this, yeah.
Sorry. Quick question. Does everyone come kind of with their own project already, or is there also people that just come?
Also, I mean, for PIFcamp this year, it was kind of specifically asked to bring things that we want to document. because we also have a wonderful camera team here. You maybe saw some.
Say hi. She's taking photos, all of us now.
And that's also a great help, because if you're too involved in your project itself, often documentation is forgotten. But it's very important to share it again openly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like for instance, like this is the reason that I'm here, because what I'm doing is documentation of one ongoing project which is called Aquaforensic, and it's project which in which me and one more collaborator from Croatia worked on pharmaceutical kind of residues of humans in the waters. And what we will do here in this PIFcamp now is like to try to figure out good methodology for the workshop, you know. So how to make a good lab book for people to go and do this kind of research by themselves.
Yeah, Robertina, you had like three, when you described what you were talking about, like three really interesting projects, which it would be cool to know more about, like Riologia, Aquatocene, like the Anthropocene, but Aquatocene, and Aquaforensic. Like, wow, please tell us a bit more about each one. And if you have some pictures.
I will show you also some photos. You wanted to say something more, or like on the end you can maybe add also some
Yeah,
more
I mean, I can also.
Because I think it's also good. What is interesting, like with Julian, we didn't knew each other from before, but we have been both involved into bacteria, each from his kind of like totally different points of views also, because I'm coming from artistical background, so I'm like trained as a sculptor, and I was always very curious and still am. So through this, I started to be very much involved with marine biology, and then, you know, then it's go further.
So I think it's what I could add at that point is that these networks, like the global bacteria network, that's what they call themselves more or less, but they don't take themselves very serious, and it's very easy to be part of this network. It's not allied. It took me a while to understand that,
sorry to interrupt you, Julian, but what is Bacteria actually?
Yes. So it's
it's an international collective of people which they're very interested in biotechnology, arts, combining arts and technology in biological kind of sense, and building your own instruments or stuff like this. You know, they have very cool web page which we are showing now.
So it's a bit of an old school page that they have, but which does the trick, and actually the wiki is the main important thing. On this wiki, they document hundreds of projects. Like, you can really get lost in this wiki.
There's also lots of people which they involve, and it's like
yeah,
there is very strong community from Indonesia. Like first time I was in part of bacteria lab, it was organized in Bangalore in India. So what they try always, and what we try always through bacteria, is like bring people from all around the world together, because I think this diversity is very missing, especially in the science, in everything, you know. Also, like in my art bubble, which is like art, science, technology, is like really white, Western dominated, and I'm trying my best always to reach out somewhere else, because we should do that also. I think very important point. Yeah.
Yes, so I think this, I see only a part of the page is missing, but yeah, this is an interesting page. It's just a collection of art, like open source art projects connected with biology, and they started a long time ago, and it's already more than 100 projects, and some are very, very well documented, and some are just like little collection of ideas. But what is the main point for me is that they kind of bring people together and then they keep them somehow connected. So it's of course again through certain characters within this network. Like one of them is Marc Bousseiller, who just, since I know him, he's flying around the world and interacting with all sorts of people. Everybody knows him somehow. I met him here and there in Indonesia, in Taiwan, or in Socha Valley. And it's quite good to have these people around. And I guess in River Collective, you also have these kind of people and build these kind of networks because amazing things come from it. I mean, it can totally change. I mean, it changed my life very profoundly to meet this network and these people. The whole me getting out of academia, in all my travels, I met people in other places of the world who share some interests. And I got my job at an art school through this network. Actually, I even kind of got to know my girlfriend through giving a workshop through this network somewhere. So it's quite life-changing.
Definitely it is. You know, it's also helped me when I started to develop different DIY techniques. You know, because sometimes scientific instruments are not even available, you know, to the person who is not part of the scientific community. So with this kind of DIY techniques, you know, when you build your own stuff, you can actually go further also. So I will jump first into, I will jump around a bit now, because I've changed my way how I want to speak to you, but it's okay. So like through this that I was, through this that I was part of Bacteria, I learned how to build my own hydrophones, underwater microphones, because I was always curious, but very much from very romantic idea of sound, you know, and what you can hear in the rivers, and I was quite obsessed with bioacoustics. But then after some while, when you start to record, especially in the oceans and seas, you mostly hear boats, because that's the thing what it is there. So I will just put it on, just a second. This. Now we see better, right? I think. So, you know, like, this is the reality of the oceans and seas, and also in the rivers. I think the sound is very much resonating constantly. And what I learned through Bacteria was actually how to build my own hydrophone. Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yeah, we see the presentation.
So yeah, so one of the first workshop I gave, it was like partly through Bacteria also, it was like in Pixel Festival in Bergen. So we built different devices and do some recordings, and then from this my project Aquatocene started to roll. So I'm like, because I spend lots of my time at the artist in residence in different marine stations. So in afternoons I do field recordings, because this is what we do. And with these recordings, I'm kind of making different compositions from around the world with different oceans and seas. And it's kind of like a moment in time, in the sense of like when I do compositions, and many times I also do workshops then.
You cannot play this.
So somehow I can't play it now, but it's possible to hear all these different compositions on my webpage. I'm sorry. It's,
Wow.
so,
can you please share with us your webpage in the chat?
Yeah, just a second. Thank you.
So all of this is the aquaforensic project, the Aquatocene.
Aquatocene, it's kind of his own. And then Aquaforensic, it started 2018 together with one biohacker from Croatia, from Dubrovnik, Gino Šutić. We developed a conceptual frame of understanding what is happening happening in the oceans. You see it also through the pharmaceuticals, pollutants, because our bodies are quite, you know, when you take the pill, 20% stays in your body, 80% goes out, and it goes mostly into sewage water / rivers, lakes, oceans, and seas, and it comes back to us sooner or later also in the through this exactly. And also not only water cycle, but the animals, it's collecting itself inside of the animals,
Food chain.
and it's inside of the food chain coming back to us. But what is the worst is like also very influencing, especially the microorganisms. So because the project was developed in the summer 2018, so partly in Linz in Ars Electronica Center and partly in Dubrovnik in Croatia, Adriatic Sea. And what we did there, it was kind of like trying to figure it out, what kind of methodology we could do it also as a workshop, because the project was partly presented as an artistical installation. So here up in the corner, you see there is installation where you have like small circles, and what you see here down in the, it's like 4 frames from the video. So what we did was like putting different microorganisms in different quantities of different pills and see what is changing, because mostly they do behavior changes, which is really hard to know, because if you don't know microorganisms, you don't know how they change the behavior, because you don't know what's then normal. But what was the terrible thing was that there was like lots of them disintegrating. This means dying inside of this. So this is quite, so the installation is actually this, that you come into the space, you see this kind of pipes, it's kind of like a system. Yeah, but then you have this kind of little holograms of animals dying. And something else is when you think about, if you would show dog dying on the show, there would be like big outrage immediately. Like when you show the microorganism dying, people is a bit confused with that, like, so that's me who do that, and stuff like that. So this project, I think, has like really good potential also inside of this citizen science, or understanding what kind of impact me as a person on personal level have also with this kind of environment. So it comes lots of this. So we developed, like we did a few times workshops, but it was like 4 or 5 days long ones at universities. So, we bring our framework of aquaforensic in the sense of understanding what is happening, what we did. But then the students get like their tests. So each student get like his own microorganism. They have to study them. It can be zooplankton or phytoplankton. So they have to study them, understand what is happening with them and so on, and then also think which kind of ecological impacts humans we have of them, what is happening in the relationship with this, and how they could deal with that inside of artistical kind of scientific frames. So it's not only about the science communication, it's not only about the arts, definitely it's not about pretty pictures of microorganisms, because this we really try to prevent. No, because this many times happens, me as artist coming into scientific world, many times first thing what they show me is pretty photos, and then I'm like, it's good, but we would like to do something more. So it's always this kind of like understanding of contextualization of stuff like that. So yeah, so that was like, and this is like why I'm here on PIF. So here on PIFcamp, I tried to develop the workshop that would be functional in 2 to 3 hours time to do something like this, but maybe to do like maybe one level would be lab workshop. So if you have like all the stuff which you need, and other level would be just like understanding water environments and how we are impacting nature or inside out, I call it. So I have like my terraforming is the talking about how we are changing everything on our planet. And aquaforming is something which I like to play around, like conceptually about it, because we are changing waters inside out. you know, from the micro nano level to the, you know, mostly people like to speak about saving
also
the
outside in through
yes,
the dams.
exactly, and it's like and it's constantly coming back and forth. So I will definitely next day speak around Julian's brain about the soil situations and stuff like that, because you know this also comes there, and there is also farming, and yeah, there is lots of topics to open up, but we will not go into that because we don't have time all night.
Yeah, but I mean the general thing is that to acknowledge that these ecosystems of, for example, soil and water, they're so tightly connected, and all organisms, the plants, the animals, the microbes, all form these ecosystems, and it can have dramatic consequences if you change something. There are a few examples. This famous example with the reintroduction of the wolves.
Yeah, in the Yellowstone Park and stuff like that, which is like really great example. Actually, it's one of the best how stuff is happening. And actually, also the last project I will speak, and why I think Julian connected me with you guys actually, because we have been introduced per email by organizers of PIFcamp, because they thought that we will be like good match somehow.
Yeah, somehow. No, it was, the story was like this. So Jens contacted me because of the science chat, through also a funny connection that in the end is due to Hecteria network. And then I knew that I will be at PIF for this day, and I asked Tina who might fit into the topic, and then Robertina came.
So last year I did a project.
He's our cosmic network. Let's just continue.
Definitely. So last year, because I do lots of this kind of aquatic, aqua-based projects, to say it quickly. They invited me to Matadero, Madrid, where they open a new institute for ecological narratives, and it's Institute of Contemporary Art, which I think is also interesting when, you know, it's like all different bigger institutions are also opening up to discussions of this kind of importance, because, you know, ecologically topics, they start to be much more present, also not only in this kind of more obscure ways, but also in, like, in mainstream basis. Jens, you want to add something?
This is so far away from my water department in Munich. Like, this is so similar to what we were doing in Chile with biofabrication and studying mushrooms and really crazy processes with open source, open hardware. Or here in Munich and the LMU, it's like going back to the 19th century and studying just, I mean, it's, I don't know, this is far, like...
It's always some, you know, it's always takes some while, and you need people to speak with. And from my experience, I will tell you like this, that, you know, like when I started to work with aquatic environments and ecological topics 10 years ago, people have been thinking, either you're activist or why? But I see this, and these last 10 years, this changed quite a lot. I would not say it's perfect yet, because we are far from that, but there is more and more people which they are aware that we should also move somewhere. And what I see, especially with younger generation, when I do courses in universities, they are much more aware of the situation where we are. It's really like, it's unbelievable. Many times my workshops on the end up of speaking also about ecological grief, which is really hard to grasp, because it's, you know, when you as one individual start to feel that you don't have any power for possible changes, and how to empower that also, you know, like how to change this perspective, because it's not so easy, you know. It can start to be dark and heavy also. So, but within the Riologia, so to not go too dark, what I was like really enthusiastic about, it was like this, you know, it was like my first time that somebody invited me and said, okay, we have like the task is this, you know, we would like to do one day citizen science workshop for 600 people, which they have been volunteers of L'Oral company, because of this kind of company days. So, and next to it, we also organized, next to this, we did also exhibition, you know, so I did like 2 projects at the same time. One was this one-day workshop, which was kind of moment of time and situation of sketch of the second. And then next to it, we did also some more complex artwork, but I would stay more focused on the workshop. So what we did was, do you hear me good still?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm just checking because we have here a bit of...
There were some noises. I think it's from somebody else.
Somebody is, yeah, so it's all good.
Yeah.
So what we did together with the team which was supporting that, like 40 different points in the city next to the river, and the methodology was like this, that we developed 40 simultaneous workshops, you know, so you could have like, we had like 2 people being guides, like one was guide which was trained by me, another was somebody from L'Oral to pump up the people also to be curious, and each group was like 15 people. So then we went, so they went into smaller groups then around. So it was like very individual experience actually. Because what I was really trying to avoid is like to bring so many people to the river, speak about ecology, and then damage something. Because then we would do like effect, you know. And as Vera was telling from the beginning, also what we did with this Riologia thingy, it was like the most important thing is actually we develop a booklet with protocols, where some of them they're talking about ecological, like about the river personalhood, about the river rights also, not only about the human rights, but you know, there's lots of river rights. There's rivers in Ecuador which got the personalhood, in New Zealand, and you know, there are some very interesting examples of that.
In Ujupis, in Lithuania.
Really, also?
It's written in the constitution.
Should be. No, it's also because last year when I went more into this river research, because I was for so long inside of oceans and seas, I was really struck by the fact that only 1/3 of the river is still free flowing. Like 2/3 of all the rivers of all the world, they are just like in the dams, in the constructions, and in something. So this was quite, you know, because as I said before, and as also Vera mentioned, river is not only the water, it's also the riverbed, is all the soil, the organisms, everything what comes with it, you know, and it's really hard to not involve that. So in this booklet, which you see here on the screen, I don't have it physical here, I will show you some pages. Sorry, it's everything is Slovenian because I just recently had the presentation in Slovene language, so you can learn with us. But the booklet was actually just, so now it's in Spanish again. So the booklet was just telling about the different conceptual levels of it. So one part was this, you know, like you come to the river, you measure the pH, you do different tests, you know, also with soda bicarbono for the soil qualities. And, you know, it was from very complicated measurements to very easy ones. You know, you come to the river and look how many birds you see, you know, and then write this down.
Oh, this looks
or
really
you come
nice.
to it was quite a project. Miranda was also part of this book. So yeah, it was quite full on because we had to develop the project in 3 months. So it was quite
Is this available also in English or not?
Not yet. Hopefully soon. Working on it. It's like
Spanish?
For now it's only in Spanish because it was done for Madrid. But the booklet we have, and I'm actually looking for some funding or something that we could do it also in English, German, in all different languages. I think it would be, and also what I see and where I see the possibility of this booklet is also to go further, because in Madrid we did some part of it, you know, but we would like to develop it further. At least I would like to do that.
I think Jens will help you to translate.
Yeah, I was taking out the topics.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and especially I like this strategias empático e tempo de profundo. This means that we have been also working about empathic strategies. What I call is like, I invited different artists who have been doing projects, you know, like one artist who is also here, Sasha Spochal, she is working a lot with soil, and her colleague, they developed a workshop a few years ago about how to bake cookies with the soil. So I asked her to do like super simple version of her project, in the sense of like rewriting it to give other people possibility to do that also. So it's not only about, you know, it's not only about measurements, but also how to develop different relationships with the thing. And when you do stuff like this, you know, and
I think in the context of rivers, kayak is a very good experience to build an
strong
empathic,
relationship.
yeah, an empathic relationship. I mean,
no, but also, you know, because empathy and solidarity, they have been so abused in this year, especially during the COVID. I couldn't believe, you know. But in my project, I started to involve this already before, because, you know, one thing is to do this scientific part, one thing is to understand it, but then, you know, how to translate this further, you know, what we could do. So this was like one of the things. We also wrote, like I wrote the meditation with the river. So you came to the river and you don't just run directly to work with it, but, you know, you sit down, observe, go through the meditation, or find some other way of grounding, and then you kind of deal with the river further, independent of what you would like to do. So, and this, each of the leaders of the groups had with him this kind of paper where they had like different variations, what you could do, everything. And he was just this telling to everybody in the group to do different, you know, so he was running the workshop. And what it happens many times with mentors of the workshop, they do all the work. So I was really trying to avoid that. So people should work on the workshop. So you just delegate to them what they can do and what they are doing. So that was like interesting.
I'd like to look more into the details.
Yeah, I will show you this.
These days.
Yeah.
And how you did the measurements.
It was kind of like, honestly for me, it was like very interesting push when the guys from Madrid, because it was commissioned from the Matadero and L'Oreal. So first I was a bit hesitating because, you know, working with companies, especially cosmetic companies and stuff like that, it can go also into greenwashing, which none of us would like to do in their lives, I think. But they managed to persuade me with the concept of, yeah, if you want to change, you have to change people inside out, and especially this division in Madrid from L'Oreal is actually working a lot with marketing and stuff like that. And it was very interesting to see, you know, also if you have 600 people, like on the end it was, I think, 500 of them, and then, you know, all the people who have been like leading the workshops and so on. So it was quite a big number. But it was quite impactful, not for everybody, of course, I mean, but for some part, yeah.
We could go more into detail about these things.
Yeah, but I think we should wrap up the session, because it also, like, this is hard for me because I'm really enthusiastic about all you're telling us, and I want to know more. And it's even interesting because we had a science chat with a person that is living in Madrid and doing like river walks, which is called Caminar el Agua, walking the water. She's an architect. It should be I could contact you if you're still planning to work in Madrid in the Rio Manzanares. I could contact you because they do a really beautiful project of environmental education, and also like geographical and environmental history education, because they walk along the Rio Manzanares and they trace the old creeks that were under it's also like we were talking about the soil covering, the soil, what was the concept, Julian?
More and more pavement.
The soil ceiling. Yes. This is like the river ceiling, yes. You know?
Like
you cover the river, and you channelize the river.
Like the cities just built on the rivers and the roads over the river. they were
exactly.
on places where the river was before, or still is under the ground.
Yes, there is a very interesting documentary which is called Lost Rivers, which is about all the rivers that are under cities or creeks, and then they are being daylighted, like they are being back to life, and related to all of this. But anyway, like I believe you shows lots of interesting projects like Bacteria, Homo sapiens, the Aquatocene, Riologia, like the PIFcamp where you are now. And one of the main messages like I get from this is like the power of collaboration and open spaces to everybody, not only academia, not only like hackers, but also like the power of getting together these different groups, like all these ideas. In that sense, I think this is a really interesting opportunity also to prove how this may be used not only to recreational in the sense that the world is amazing, we all know that, but the world is being threatened by ourselves. So how could we also change this situation? And then we have all these possible tools, this possible knowledge that may give us a way to go navigate now through these new ecological narratives you were talking about, this climate change, but more than the climate change, the global change we are living through. So this is really inspiring. I love your talk and all the projects you were talking about, like for real. In that sense, I don't know if you have. I really thank you. I'm sad that we didn't have a full house, but I really enjoy this. And thank you a lot, all of the participants, and you, Julian, and you, Robertina, and Vera for also being always organizing this. And I don't know if you, Vera, had something more to add, or you peeps in the PIFcamp as well.
And Vera is coming to Slovenia.
Yeah, I will be teaching on the Socha River for a week at least, so I'm happy to step by. And I'm really happy to receive a copy of that booklet also, because it could be like, we're definitely, I think we've been talking about some kind of citizen science direction project, but also to have it a bit wider than indeed only doing measurements on the river, but to have also a bit of social sciences background or artsy kind of background, that also participatory. So this seems super cool, and I'm also surprised it comes from L'Oreal, but it's quite cool actually.
I will correct you. It's not from them. They just invited us to do the workshop for them. So me and the team from Matadero develop all this, you know. So
okay, but so it was our intention, kind of. Okay, yeah, but cool. And you might just get a really different group instead of the bubble, because you were like, you both used the word bubble a few times. It's cool to kind of get out of that. And honestly, like a hackathon kind of direction, I'm quite curious to explore. Maybe we can do a river
hacking. Let's hack our rivers. Let's hack the dams. Let's destroy dams. Okay, sorry.
So Jens is quite enthusiastic also.
Jens is about like building bombs at the dams, I think.
Yeah, but technology somehow. No, I'm definitely keen to explore this a bit more. So I don't know if like you would be keen on another chat maybe at some point. If you like, I'm definitely keen on coming by in Slovenia. But yeah,
I would like people of your network. That would be great.
Cool. Where do you live yourself?
I live in Munich, but I will stay in Slovenia for at least all of August.
Okay.
Okay. I live not at Socha. I'm living in Ljubljana, but
I can think of kayaking.
Yeah, please. Jens was already teaching me many different skills. The Eskimo roll, I learned 50%. I can do half of an Eskimo roll now.
How can you do that?
Yeah, the first.
Okay. Train.
Julian,
I have to train the second half now.
Tried to get into a hole. He was playing in a hole. He wanted to understand how water flows on, like the water flow, feel the water flow in his head and face.
Water flow research.
Water flow research. Cool. Okay, in that case, I'm happy to wrap up and just drink a beer with you in Slovenia and go kayaking. We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Thanks for this.
Thanks a lot.
Really inspiring. And cool to see like
Thanks
more
for the
people.
invitation. Thanks for the invitation.
Definitely. And Vera, you work with people from Slovenia on this also, or like there is?
It started with like Anna is from Slovenia. She's down for me. Anna.
Yeah, Anna is here.
I feel like it's even emptier than you thought.
Hey
like
everyone,
there's more.
I'm here. I'm just like
Anna's
working on a paper at the same time, so I'm not
I'm
talking a lot. But thanks for the talk. It was super interesting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so Anna is definitely also Slovenia. Yeah, cool. And there's more people actually from Slovenia in the River Collective network. I think we have some participants that registered for the camp. So we'll see who really joins online with activities.
I would
Cool.
be happy
We'll
to
be in
get
touch.
addresses or some possibilities to contact.
Maybe we
can
could
also-
do like meeting in Ljubljana or something.
Yeah.
Meet up.
Connect you all. I will connect you with Vera.
Yes.
Cool.
Jens, feel free to spread my email to everyone who's interested or not.
For me, double check the people, please.
So that's the difference between Germany and Slovenia. Yeah. I thought it was the other way around, but
No, sorry.
And Bieber, as soon as you tell Jens, like, oh, just spread my email address, it will go, like, you'll start receiving emails every day, like, oh, I thought you might be interested in this. No, it's cool. It's cool.
I have to go. I am hungry.
Yeah.
Bye.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
camp.
Bye, everyone.
And
Ciao.